Hi, Chevon. I'm looking over your second submission for the code, and it's looking pretty good, but there are a couple of things that I see that are a problem, and I want you to really understand them before you move on to the next project, since we'll be using functions all of this semester. So I want to show you a couple of things. I'm looking over main, and if I look over the functions in main, I see that you're going to display first, then you're going to input data, and then perform the calculations. And so that I see as being a little bit problematic because you're going to display, let's say, num days. Let's look at num days first. Num days at this point in your code still only has a 0 in it. Car class has this n in it, right? So all the initialized values. You have not done input yet. So I think this is a little bit out of order, and let me show you how it runs. Okay, so here's your number of days as a 0. Class of car has nothing in it at this point, and your charges are all zeros. Now you ask the user for input. That's this point in your code. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the input. And you'll see that nothing happens here. So it gets to calculate the charges, then it calculates the total, but it doesn't show you those answers. And what I typically do, most of the time you'll find display as being the very last step. So I think this is just simply out of order. If you take this and move this here, now it becomes the last thing you do. So first you're going to input data from the user, then you're going to use that input to perform your calculations, right? So now you're going to calculate all the charges with whatever the user told you. Then you're going to sum the charges to come up with a total. And then you're going to display. So that sounds better. And when I run it this time, notice that it's the first thing I do is I'm asked to do input, but I'm still all zeros. And one of the reasons for that, I'll explain, is because let's talk about get data first, right? So the get data function brings in num days, a 0, car class as n, gas option as n, and insurance as n, right? These are all coming in with n values. This is coming in with 0. Goes down into the function. These are called value parameters, which means you're just taking the value and bringing the value down to the function. And so when the user inputs the number of days, like I put in a 1, it does not go back up to main. The two do not communicate with one another. That is main and the function. So I'll show you what I mean kind of in a visual. I know the drawing in a video is terrible, but I'm going to do my best here. If you could imagine when you declare a variable, okay, say num days, you've just created this little location in memory. It's just a little pocket, and that pocket has an address, and I'm just going to make up a number. You know, some binary number, a bunch of zeros and ones. Let's just say for pretend, it's this number, right? 1101. And I come down into the function. Now, when I pass by value, what happens is I'm creating a brand new, it happened to be using the same name. That doesn't matter. But I'm creating a brand new pocket. And that brand new pocket has a different number. Let's say it's 1100, right? Totally different. So it's another little pocket in memory. So up in here, I've got 0, which is fine. And down here, I come down and I have a 0. Okay? And now I get to this statement here where the user puts in a 1. So now this changes to a 1. And I do all the rest, and then I go back up and I get returned to line 27 to calculate. Now, the problem I have is that this changed to a 1, but this stayed down here. It didn't come back with me. So when I get to this part to calculate, this sees 0. And that's because these are two totally separate locations in memory, and main can't communicate with the function. What you need to do differently, and I'll show you, is you need to turn this into a reference parameter. Now, reference parameters behave completely differently. And so putting the ampersand in front of, wrong one, sorry. Let me do get data right here. putting the ampersand in front here, and then putting the ampersand in front here means, and I'll draw it one more time. I know it's kind of annoying to watch me draw. Maybe you can speed this up. Right, so you create this little pocket of memory here, and this has a 0 in it, and this is 1, 1, what did I say, 0, 1, I believe. Well, when you get down here with a reference parameter, you're not creating a new pocket. Basically, what you're doing is you're pointing up to this pocket. So now, when the user changes the number here and it changes to a 1, it doesn't change down in this area. It changes up in this area. Right? So when I get to the very next statement, line 27, I now have a 1 in num days, and now I can perform the calculation. So what you need to do to fix your code, let me just get out of here, is you need to change these to reference parameters. And what I like to tell students is, you know, here's what you need to do. You need to ask yourself a few questions in order to determine whether you're using a value parameter, that means no ampersand, or a reference parameter, that means ampersand. And so the question you ask yourself is the data changing inside of the function? And if the answer is yes, right, this is data changing here. If the answer is yes, and then you ask a second question, does main need to know about these changes? And if that answer is yes, then you need to make all of them reference parameters. So give that a little bit of thought and start to question whether a value parameter needs to be used or a reference parameter needs to be used. And that's going to dictate how you bring your data back to main. And again, the key here is that, you know, main can't communicate. You have to picture main as its own island, and the functions are on their own islands, and they can't communicate with one another unless you do a handoff, and that handoff is either a value parameter or a reference parameter. So see if that helps. I will accept a resubmission on this one. Like I said, I just want you to get it right, because you're going to use these functions a lot going forward.